Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the program. I hope you had a good start of the week. And this article that I'm about to go over is, again, if you guys have followed my channel and have been keeping up to date with the Younger Dryas boundary event, the comet impact event between 12,800 and 11,600 years ago, all the evidence that's been unfolding, gosh, but like almost like a conveyor belt, just like one after another, and another archaeological site pops up. Well, this article that I'm about to go over today is located at Abu Hureyra, which is in Syria, which borders Turkey, which is at another place that you guys might know called Göbekli Tepe, which allegedly the home of all agriculture and kind of like the epicenter of learning those types of cultivating skills. So Abu Hureyra is a huge landmark. This is going to be in textbooks. This is a huge, huge deal because it's the first site to document the direct effects of fragmented comets on a human settlement. So what that basically means is all of these Younger Dryas boundary sites that they've found a ton of these sites. I think this is like the 41st site now, but they're all over Europe, North America. There's 2 or 3 in South America as well. So this is Syria right here. This is Abu Hureyra, where this pinprick is. Turkey, for reference, this is where Göbekli Tepe is. And they found these Younger Dryas boundary sites all over Europe, almost toward the Middle East, in the United States, mainly on the East Coast, but pretty much all over. And then there's 3. There's one in Venezuela, I think, and there's 2 others in South America. So, and they all feature this black matte layer, which all dates to, again, 12,800 years ago, which is a very peculiar thing, right? This is why it first started out as a theory, and then it just evolved as they found more and more sites. And if you've been following this for a while, it was very exciting and very thought-provoking and very interesting thing to see it unfold and watch it grow and watch this theory become all but fact, essentially. And all of these sites, again, they have these microspherules, all these impact proxies and stuff, which we'll get into in a bit. Just one thing, though, to mention about Abu Hureyra itself is there are 2 different periods of existence regarding Abu Hureyra. So there, in archaeological terms, you just call it Abu Hureyra 1 and 2. So Abu Hureyra 1, it was in the European Mesolithic era or the Epi-Paleolithic era. If you're new to this stuff, there's a lot of different names that basically refer to the same thing. So the Epi-Paleolithic era is between 22,000 years ago and about 18 to 17,000 years ago. And then this is when Abu Hureyra was a largely sedentary hunter-gathering lifestyle. Not sedentary, I'm sorry. A hunter-gathering lifestyle. That's what it was known for. That's what all the archaeologists had consensus on. Who knows if they're completely hunter-gatherers, if they had domestication and all that stuff. That's beside the point, though. And then Abu Hureyra 2, something crazy happens, and then in the early Neolithic, again, this is right after the Younger Dryas event, or right in the midst of it. It's about 12,000 years ago, give or take a few hundred years. And they became farmers, essentially. They became an agricultural-based society after, in the wake of this cataclysm, which we now know for sure happened. Because why? Because the comet landed on the goddamn village itself. So the village now is submerged underwater. So if we zoom in, it's submerged now. But before it became submerged, they were able to, and by they I mean excavators and scientists and stuff, they were able to get a lot of stuff out and study and extract a lot of valuable data. And Richard Firestone, if you guys have heard his name, he's one of the main contributors to the Younger Dryas boundary or Younger Dryas hypothesis. He proposed this black mat when he started getting wind of the black mat layer and stuff, that it's only a matter of time before they find a site that was completely decimated. So they find this black mat layer site directly within the city. So again, there's about 40 sites globally now with known layers that are documented. And again, this became the first city that had documented direct effects from a fragmented comet. Okay, so it was a lot of this. Just really quick, if you guys are schooled in this, I'm sorry, I just have to get this out for the newer viewers. So for the longest time, they thought, okay, well, was it one comet that, like one giant comet that did all this, or did it fragment? And then they pretty soon found out that it was a series of multiple impacts that broke off from one larger comet. Some people believe that's Comet Encke, which I'm pretty sure that's what it is, Comet Encke. It broke off from there, and that comet came from the Kuiper Belt, which is way out in space, like the outer reaches of space, and through what's called the Taurid meteor stream, which is this meteor stream that Earth passes through twice a year. And it's akin to crossing a freeway blindfolded with heavy traffic, right? So every time we're rolling the dice, every time we go through this thing, and every time we go through it, we go through a slightly different part of it. So depending on where you are, the cosmic debris, there's different concentrations of it. Anyway, I'm bearing the lead here. So within these black mat layer sites in Abu Hureyra, they found nanodiamonds, meltglass, microspherules, charcoal, nickel, cobalt with melted local sediment and meteoric material. Okay, so this is all what they found. They also found high concentrations of iridium, platinum, nickel, and cobalt, right? And they estimated that it must have been around 12,000 degrees Celsius and upwards to 2,200 degrees Celsius. That's how hot it was in order to create these things. So there's very little things that in the world, in the history of the Earth, that gets that hot. There's very few things that in which you can reach those levels, and the meteor impact was one of those. Okay, so in the wake of all this, they came to a consensus. And again, these are all-star cast of scientists that includes James Kennett, Will Napier, Malcolm LeCompte, and a bunch of other guys. So these guys have been at it for many, many years. They're very they have a healthy amount of skepticism, but they're also very intrepid and they're very dedicated to just getting to the truth of this. And so their opinion should be trusted because they have walked through the fire of criticism for many, many years. And finally, this site is getting a lot of skeptics on board. Like Michael Shermer is one of them. He had a tweet out earlier today that he all but apologized to Graham Hancock, I think, because he was very, very rigid in his ideas until this came out. So for him, this was a smoking gun. So again, if you guys know who Michael Shermer is, he's a professional skeptic, and it's really hard to get him to budge on anything. Like he thinks JFK was just a single done by Lee Harvey Oswald alone. But anyway, okay. I'm really getting off track here. I'm drinking way too much coffee. So the study features, again, James Kennett, Will Napier, Malcolm LeCompte. The impact event caused villagers to go from hunter-gathering to early agriculture and so on. I mentioned that. So let's get into the actual one of the articles here. And I'll have the link to both articles, the nature.com article, and then the publication by, I believe it's phys.org. If not, then I'll have it'll be corrected in the description, guys. So I'm sorry, I just can't. I go through many articles a day, and I can't remember if this is phys.org or Eureka Alert or something. So Abu Hureyra bore witness to the moment ancient nomadic people first settled down and started cultivating crops. And I forgot to mention this. Abu Hureyra is one of the earliest sites to have known farmers and agriculture in the world. And if we just look again. Turkey is usually the oldest known having this agricultural way of life. And if you look at Göbekli Tepe and then Çatalhöyük, they're all within this region, right? Turkey and Syria are very, very close. It's not far at all. So if if you were to just listen to the hypothesis of, okay, there was an epicenter of agriculture going on in Turkey around 12,000 years ago, logically you could see it spread. Just if you just look at the geography, it would spread in all directions, right? And then Abu Hureyra would be right there. So anyway, so now it lies under Lake Assad. But before the lake formed, archaeologists were able to carefully extract and describe much material, including parts of houses, food, tools, and abundance of evidence that allowed them to identify the transition to agriculture nearly 12,800 years ago. So when they found this out, they're like, okay, well, what happened? Like, why did this transition seem to happen abruptly? It seems pretty abrupt. So, and there are all kinds of theories out there. And then Richard Firestone was one of the first guys to propose, oh, well, there was a comet that smashed into the Earth, and there are all kinds of repercussions. It's not just the impact that fucked this place up, although, I mean, specifically Abu Hureyra, it did, but the surrounding areas that weren't in the immediate vicinity of the epicenter, man, they fell victim to like nuclear fallout, and it was just chaos for a long time. So, found among the cereals and grains and splashed on early building material and animal bones was meltglass. So this was the first clue to get them to spend money on excavations to look through. And of course, meltglass is only formed at extremely high temperatures. And again, there's only a few things to narrow down where and why the high temperatures came about. Again, fire, lightning, or volcanism. Lightning you can kind of rule out because it doesn't. Why would you have 40 different impact quote YDB sites just from lightning at around the same time? It just seems very, like, statistically speaking, it just seems off. Volcanism, they investigated that too, but then again, you have the same problem where, again, if I zoom out, why would all these volcanoes go off? They would have to, if it was a volcano, then it would all have to go off at the same time, and all on 3 or 4 different continents. So that's out. So a common impact made the most sense. And the Hiawatha impact crater too, this allegedly it's the same comet, the same comet fragments. So again, that came out, I think, a year and a half ago, and now more and more is coming out. The Hiawatha thing was another huge milestone in the development and the actualization of this theory. But anyway, so this is James Kennett from UC Santa Barbara. This is what he says. To help with perspective, such high temperatures would completely melt an automobile in less than a minute. Such intensity could only have resulted from an extremely violent, high-energy, high-velocity phenomenon. Okay, something on the order of a cosmic impact. So cosmic impact checks all those boxes, right? So they had all this. They had all this stuff. They were sitting on all this evidence. And then they checked out Abu Hureyra because, again, it checked all these boxes in terms of. But when you plan an excavation, you need to be very, very careful and very knowledgeable in picking the best spot to excavate. So Abu Hureyra was one of the sites, and they were right because these fragments are all part of the same comet, right? That's what they learned. There are all these different leads that they followed that led them all to Abu Hureyra, right? So they came to the consensus that these were fragments. Some of them exploded into the atmosphere. Some of them hit the ground. If you guys don't know about 1908, the Tunguska event, same thing. This was a fragment from the same meteor stream, and the reason why they know that is because the date at which it happened. I think the Tunguska event was in around June. I think June and October are the 2 times that we passed through that stream. If you leave a comment, I'm saying that off the top of my head. Leave a comment if I'm wrong, if you want to correct me on that, but I'm pretty certain that that's the case. Anyway, my point with the Tunguska event was it exploded in the atmosphere, and still there's no trees that grow there. It's been over 100 years. It's been 112 years, and there's still no trees there. So imagine if that happened on a place like Abu Hureyra, which now we know that it did. Imagine the chaos and all the violence and all the fallout from that. Our newest discoveries represent much more powerful evidence for very high temperatures that could only be associated with a cosmic impact. Again, they narrowed it down. As far as its geography and its location, Abu Hureyra lies at the easternmost sector of what is now known as the Younger Dryas boundary. So if you were to imagine all of this, like think of like an upside down L, right, or like a lowercase r, that this boundary would encompass the United States, northern part of South America. There are even some people investigating Africa. I would love to see if there are any YDB sites in Africa. There probably are. There was a map that I had in a previous episode. You guys can look it up. I'm not gonna pull it up here. But there's a good visual on all. It has like red dots for every site. You guys can probably just Google that. And then there's a lot in Western and Northern Europe. And then Syria is the easternmost part of this YDB. So when they say Younger Dryas boundary, that's what they mean. Where all these the surface area of the Earth in which these Younger Dryas black mat layers are strewn about across the years. So there's about 30 other sites in the Americas, Europe, and part of the Middle East. I think it's about 42 sites now, and with 3 sites in South America. These sites hold evidence of massive burning, including a widespread carbon-rich black mat layer that contains millions of nanodiamonds, high concentrations of platinum, and tiny metallic spherules, including a very young impact crater beneath Hiawatha Glacier. We talked about that. And then the Pilauco site in southern Chile. Yeah, I mentioned that too. And I have the video. You guys, if you guys just check the playlist, I have the Pilauco video. Is probably, I don't know, I think that was like 5 months ago now. And time flies. 5 or 6 months ago. You guys can totally pull that up, and it's very similar evidence as this Abu Hureyra site. The village would have been abruptly destroyed. It shows direct evidence of the disaster on this early human settlement. And then again, unlike the evidence from Pilauco, which was limited to human butchering of large animals up to but not younger than the Younger Dryas impact burn layer. So this shows direct evidence of the disaster like right after their Epipaleolithic era. Okay, so it happened right smack dab in the middle of their existence, right? And who knows how long people were living in Abu Hureyra. It had to have been at the very least 22,000 years ago that people were living there to some degree. As far as like towns and like large scale settlements, that again, I think that only goes back to the very early Neolithic. But again, there are people there for a long time. So it makes sense that there are a lot of stories. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah comes up, right? And there are probably other like Epic of Gilgamesh and a lot of other the Vedas, all these old scriptures that have some sort of parallel story to this. So this is not new to the ancients. As far as the glass goes, it was analyzed for geochemical composition, shape, structure, formation temperature, magnetic characteristics, and water content. So the results shows that it formed at very high temperatures, included chromium, iron, nickel, sulfides, stuff all that I mentioned, 2200 degrees Celsius. So the meltglass is formed from the nearly instantaneous melting and vaporization of regional biomass. So it happened. This wasn't a gradual event, guys. This happened overnight, essentially, right? If you look at the Greenland ice cores, okay, Greenland ice cores show a gradual. Basically, it's like a marker. It's like a time capsule of the climate of the Earth. And so the further back you go, you can see you can pretty much deduce what it was like, what the climate was like. And then there's a spike around the Younger Dryas event, and then it suddenly cools right after that because of the fallout conditions. The sun was blocked out for many, probably for centuries. It was blocked out just because of this ejecta. Basically, the ejecta, when a cosmic impact happens, if it hits the ground, then all the stuff in the ground is either vaporized or launched into the air. And so you have this giant dust and all of this stuff into the sky, into the atmosphere that blocks out the sun. So when the sun's blocked out, what happens? You have a lot of cooling, right? So again, impact happens, 2200 degree heat spike, and then instantaneous cooling. That's a lot of people can't wrap their head around that, but that's basically the bare bones of what happens in any cosmic impact event on a large scale. Likely that they resulted from a fragmented comet, right? Comet Encke, look that up. Already talked about that, but that's another video. By the way, tune into the radio broadcast in a couple days on Friday between 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific, and I'll probably talk more about Comet Encke and the mythological side of things. But right now, I just want to stick to the science and this breakthrough. A single major asteroid impact would not have caused such widely scattered materials like those discovered at Abu Hureyra. The largest cometary debris clusters are proposed to be capable of causing thousands of airbursts within the span of minutes across one entire hemisphere of the Earth. The hypothesis proposed this mechanism to account for the widely dispersed coeval materials across more than 14,000 kilometers of the northern and southern hemispheres. So this discovery supports a major impact event from such a fragmented comet. So again, that makes a lot of sense that if something were to come into our atmosphere, obviously it would break apart, and as it broke apart, it would just spread across the Earth. And this is how big we're talking here. Take a dirt just to try to replicate the effect yourself, just to get a rudimentary visual. Take a dirt clod from your backyard. Try to mold it up a little bit in your kind of like a snowball, and throw it in the air. And as it falls down, you'll see just by default it starts to break apart. Now imagine a cosmic object going through the gauntlet of our atmosphere, and as it goes through the atmosphere is kind of like a filter, right? It goes through, it gets bombarded by all the stuff that shields us in the atmosphere, and then it breaks apart, and then it still makes it through, and then its trajectory, you can see if you had the map, it's like a lowercase r. So and there's probably way more sites too. If you take, and this is the last thing I'll say before I sign off here, if you take Plato's Atlantis story, again, Atlantis is where my cursor is around here. This is the Azores Plateau. It would be right in the middle of this bombardment episode. It would be right within the boundary itself. So marine archaeology would be very interesting around here too. But again, that's a tough sell. The Azores is way in the middle of nowhere of the Atlantic Ocean, and it would cost many, many, many resources to actually do that. But hey, if you're an aspiring archaeologist or an excavator or some sort of marine biologist or something, I would definitely, that's a point of interest that I would keep in my back pocket. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Please leave a comment. The radio show will, the next thing I'm going to do, I'll probably have an episode after the radio show on something else, because I have a huge backlog of articles that I want to share with you guys. I just haven't gotten to. This coronavirus stuff is actually affecting not my direct life, but it's affecting my work life, and that's why things have been kind of up in the air with in terms of where I'm working and my professional stuff that I need to do to feed myself and make money. But so yeah, that's the delay. But I'm trying to squeeze in time in my schedule to really churn these out, because I really do enjoy it. I also need to get, if you're wondering why I don't do video anymore, it's because my camera that I was using before just took a crap on me and doesn't work. So I'm kind of saving up money for a good one. I want a good one, not just a mid-level one. I want if I'm going to buy anything for the podcast and or not just for the channel and this program, I want to have the best stuff that I can possibly get. Like this microphone is probably the most expensive thing that I have, aside from like my computer and stuff. But yeah, anyway, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter. Please tune in. You can see on my janky image here, you have a link to the radio show. Again, this is a link to Grimerica FM server. So if you go to the link now, it'll probably be a different show. But if you go between 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific, you'll hear my voice. I'll play some music. Some people were asking me what some of the music was that I was playing. I don't. it's just some instrumental music that I listen to. But yeah, if you guys have any requests for music, you can do that too. But anyway, I've talked long enough, and I'll see you guys later.